Oh, where's my coffee? Good morning, guys. I have my hot oatmeal cookie latte here. Fall has always been my favorite season. I grew up in the Bay Area, and up there you get the changing colors of leaves, and they would all fall down and pile on the ground on this big massive pile, and it was just the most beautiful thing. Weather-wise, in the mornings you would feel like this really crisp, chill air, followed by a really warm afternoon, so it was always hard for me to dress for school. But with the start of the new school year, I always felt like fall was like the kickoff to the most fun season of the year. So while I didn't grow up with like a whole decorated porch with pumpkins, carving pumpkins, all that stuff, or even like warm apple pies baking in the oven, I always had this vision, this idealistic vision of what I saw in the movies or on TV of what I wanted fall to look like when I grew up. Of course, now that we're in LA, there's no changing colors of leaves. There's no leaves falling to the ground. You don't get that dramatic, beautiful vision of autumn. But ever since Nate and I had Erisy and now Rowan, we started a tradition of going to the pumpkin patch every year. And with our best friends Jimmy and Alyssa finally moving down here, we all decided to go to the pumpkin patch together. Erisy had such a great time. She and little Jay were pulled in a wagon by our friend Jimmy, and they even sat on pumpkins. We picked up this little pumpkin, and it's actually a sugar pumpkin that's great for pie, making pie, but this is perfect Cece size to decorate, so I'm gonna save this for her. But in the meantime, I'm gonna give you guys my inspiration for the week, which are these pumpkin pie crumble bars. They are basically an oatmeal crust with a pumpkin pie filling and a crumble on top. And like I said in the last video, I make things work overtime for me. So because I'm still breastfeeding, anything that I could put oats in, I will do. So in a bowl, I'm gonna add 1.5 cups of rolled oats, followed by 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour, then 1/2 cup of brown sugar. I like to use dark brown sugar just because it has a little bit more flavor. 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and then we give it a mix. So lately I've been really into making pies. I've actually been making a lot of apple pies, but I asked you guys on stories what kind of pies you guys like, and a lot of you guys said pumpkin pies, so I thought instead of making like another pumpkin pie video, just because there's so many out there, why not do something a little different and fun like these pumpkin pie oat bars? They're a little different. They still have that layer of like pumpkin pie filling in there, but it's just a little bit more interesting. Plus, you can make these and bring them to a potluck, and they would be so much easier to serve. And finally, I'm gonna add 3/4 cup of melted unsalted butter. Just give it a final mix. Just make sure everything is really well incorporated. And you know what? I'm actually just gonna finish it off with my hands, because a lot of the times the crumbs kind of settle at the bottom and I can't always get to it with my spatula. Doesn't help that I'm always using too small of a bowl too. So as you can see, the texture is pretty moist. So if you kind of crumple it up in a ball in your palm like this, it should all stick together. So now what I'm gonna do is take 2/3 of this mixture and press it down into my baking pan, which is an 8x8 size. And again with my hands, I'm just gonna press the mixture down into the pan because we want a really tight crust. If you don't feel like you have enough of the mixture to cover the dish, just grab a little bit more to fill in the gaps. So I reserved about a cup of the oatmeal mixture here, and this is gonna go on top of our pumpkin pie filling later. But in the meantime, I'm gonna par bake the bottom crust at 350 degrees for about 15 minutes. So we are gonna be decorating that little sugar pie pumpkin. But instead of carving it, we're gonna glue a bunch of colored tissue papers on there because I think that was what I did a long time ago when I was in grade school. So yeah, a super long time ago. So instead of carving, we are gonna keep it toddler friendly and just let her be creative. Okay, you can cut this like this.
Like this?
Like that. So see, what color is this?
Pink.
That's right.
Pink.
What color is this?
Blue.
Blue. Yay! One more time. Wow! Okay, so while the crust is baking and Rolly looks okay, he's sleeping, I'm gonna make the pumpkin pie filling. Okay, so we're gonna start with pumpkin puree. You can totally make your own. Just roast something like the sugar pie pumpkin up. Roast it for like an hour, scoop out the seeds first. But it's a lot of work, and if you have 2 kids, one of them being a newborn like me, canned pumpkin puree works just fine. Or if you just don't have time, just use pumpkin puree. So I'm gonna add this to a bowl along with some brown sugar, pumpkin pie spice, vanilla extract, a pinch of salt, and 1 egg. I'll give it a good mix. All the exact measurements will be in the description box below. And finally, just to thin everything out, a 1/4 cup of heavy cream. Okay, that looks good. The consistency should kind of be like thick applesauce. You don't want it too runny because then it won't like solidify and it'll just be really wet and runny when you make the bars. That's not what you want. Okay, I think our bottom crust is done, so I'm gonna pull it out and then we're gonna layer everything. It's nice and firm and the edges are golden brown, but not too brown because you're gonna continue baking it later. So now what I'm gonna do is just pour the pumpkin pie mixture right on top, spread it out evenly, and then just to even everything out, I'm gonna give it a good shake, nice and flat. Now with our leftover crumb mixture, I'm just gonna sprinkle it all over the top. One of my biggest fears when making these types of like oat crumble bars is that I never save enough crumbles for the top, but thankfully, we are just okay today. We're more than okay. We're more than okay, we have enough. So I'm just gonna take my hand and brush the mixture to cover any gaps. Just do it really gently because I don't want the mixture to sink into the pie filling. You kind of want it to crumble still. This looks great. So back into the oven it goes for 350 degrees for about 35 to 40 minutes. I found that 35 minutes is the sweet spot because there's still a nice jiggle to the pumpkin pie. So we take this like that and then stick it on the pumpkin. This is glue.
Square.
That's purple.
Square.
Oh, it's a square.
Hexagon.
Huh? Hexagon. She just said hexagon, even though that's not the right shape. But she knows her shapes. Well, we've been kind of working on it. Okay, that looks good. I'm gonna put it on the pumpkin. Put the paper on the pumpkin. Oh. Yay! Good job. No, don't blow it.
Whoa.
Whoa. No. Clean that. Alright,
Whoa.
it's okay. You like the purple and pinks and blues.
Purple.
Purple. You guys, this smells amazing. It smells like sweet brown sugar mixed with the warm fall spices. This is exactly what fall should smell like all the time. I wish I could bottle it up in a candle for you. But The only bummer about this is that I can't dig in right away because it needs to set or finish setting, so I have to cool it completely for about 2 to 3 hours. If you want to expedite the process, then let it cool at room temperature for about 1 hour and then pop it in the fridge for another hour. This would make a really great breakfast because it's not super sweet, but it's kind of like a granola bar. The first and corner piece is always the hardest to get out and always the most unattractive, but it's my favorite just because there's always a beautiful crust at the bottom, which I'm gonna go in at this side first. It is like having a pumpkin pie cookie for breakfast. It's not too sweet. I love all the oats in there and the spices. It goes so well with my coffee. Nate thinks that a dollop of whipped cream would be perfect on this, but that goes into the dessert territory, and I don't know, that's not really what I'm trying to go for. Although, if you were to take this hot out of the oven, let it cool down for maybe like 30 minutes, you can technically serve it with whipped cream and vanilla ice cream for something a little bit more decadent.